A sage is peace itself. The word sant or sage implies unadulterated peace, where all desires have been fulfilled. Ancient literature bestows profuse praise on the benefits of being in the company of such sages. A disciple who fully revels in the words of a sage has little else to do as part of his sadhana. What knowledge makes you a Satguru? It is the knowledge of your consciousness. Those who see the teachings of their Satguru as their own anubhava, or intuitive experience, need no other sadhana. The Satguru tells them, you are not the name and form that you thought yourself to be, but you are that infinite, unchanging consciousness, which is eternal. You are that whatever is Paramatman and nothing but that. Love that as your dearest self. Do everything that life demands, but do not swerve from the teachings of the Satguru, that you are the Absolute. Just as existence of the world is known due to consciousness, so is the existence of Absolute known by virtue of consciousness. In fact, birth didn't happen at all for me. To whom did it actually happen is clarified by worshipping the Satguru. As our death is unavoidable, why make it undignified? Make a determined effort to cognize the fact that if at all I exist, then I am nothing but Brahman, as suggested by the Guru. Become allied with your consciousness. Lord Krishna provides an accurate definition of everything from Paramatman to minuscule animals and insects. Human birth, although unreal, is nonetheless part of our experience. The image of sun is reflected from a drop of water, but when the water drop dries up, even a child can say that the sun isn't there. Similarly, ignorant ones feel that a person is no more when his body dies. In reality, Atman is eternal and is not bound by birth or death. It is ever existent. Sattva in the body appears to have given him a form. For liberation, one must disidentify with the body and be in alliance with one's consciousness. The attributes last as long as the sattva lingers in the body. The body is classified as male or female due to its particular form. The body, after all, is a creation of sattva, or the food consumed by the person. Whatever can be objectified cannot be you. To realize that you are just a knower of the central experiences of the body, practice living as if you were without a body. Then it gradually becomes clear that whatever experiences you have, you remain untouched by them. One must remember the sainthood of the sages, and that our true nature is that of Paramatman and not this body. The body is just a bad dream. You must bear in mind that you are the pure consciousness. Always meditate on this idea and abandon the concept of individuality. With firm resolve, you must have the conviction that you are Brahman. Affix your mind in your Swarupa, your true nature. As soon as you realize the reality of your presence and how it happened, you are freedom itself. Your Guru and God is yourself. My absolute nature is Brahman. That which is left when everything else is filtered out is the pure quality of sattva, which is self-love. It is the formless Ishwar Bhagavan. When consciousness is used to meditate upon itself, Viveka shines. The light of Jnana lights up brightly, and you realize that your Guru and the God are your own self. But the basal tendencies of rajas and tamas dominate and prevent sattva from shining. When the three traits of a person merge into single, undivided consciousness, or non-dual awareness, It is the state of vijnana, a state beyond consciousness. When sattva guna dominates in a person, he loses interest in mundane and sensual pleasures. This lack of interest in the sense object is true renunciation. You were not born with your knowledge or consent. Why then sign upon its delivery note? Your birth happened unexpectedly. It is also not possible to predict when this experience of human birth will end for you. Therefore, this human experience is transitory. Analyze and evaluate the reality of this experience of human life and find out whether this birth really happened at all. One must enjoy being with consciousness. Such a devotee is known as Radharuman. The word Radha means sattva, or the food material, and Raman is the enjoyer of being, consciousness. The one who dwells placidly in one's own inner heavenly beatitude does not need to hanker for listless, paltry, or borrowed pleasures of the mundane world. As one's consciousness merges into itself, it is the real nivruti, or renunciation, and samadhi is nothing but the memory of the being merging into sattva-guna. Subsequently, one is unconscious of one's separate existence. Nirguna is not knowing if you are being or non-being. What we are today is not as a mind or individual soul. When a person who is identified with the body realizes he or she is not the one with name and form, the knowledge of being one with God resurfaces, and the person's I amness dissolves. An ignorant one follows the mind and accepts his or her body as the form. But the very definition of mind is merely an imagination that depends completely on the I amness. The behavior of mind is dependent on the ego of a person, on what he considers himself to be. When I say Brahman is immaculate and stainless, it means that it is beyond imagination as well as the sense of being. The one who is not subjugated by the mind is free of mental modifications. He is not attached to anything. Such a one is unconditioned and without attributes. To think of oneself as having a form is the main problem. Once there was no concept of having a body with the name and form, and then there were no experience of time either. The one who imbibes this knowledge realizes during the last hours of his life that prana is leaving the body and the consciousness is becoming blissful and free of attributes. The one who recognizes one's waking state as just a dream sees prana leaving the mortal coil in perfect bliss and without pain. During the final hour of departure, he experiences the bliss that surpasses all happiness that was received during his life, and fear is completely absent. For the one who is enlightened, the phenomenon of death dies even when his body is alive. Such a person who has experienced this knowledge sees the end of time in his so-called demise. It was not really him, but time itself that was born as a child. He was raised by the three gunas. The three qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas are imbibed in every morsel of food that is consumed. Remember this, and turn your attention to the feet of the Guru. As long as sattva simmers in the body, consciousness continues to exist. When the quintessence of food is depleted, consciousness becomes nirguna, the unconditioned. When death happens, Jnani is filled with bliss. It is a moment of great fear only for the ignorant and not the wise. Good things arrive later in life. You must contemplate now about what would be your nature when it arrives. The one the consciousness finally points to is Paramatman. When consciousness hears this knowledge, it realizes that its true nature is prior to it. Nirguna is not knowing if one exists or not. Only such persons attain the exalted state of enlightenment. He feels that nothing needs to be done. Witnessing of the body, mind, and prana happen to our true nature, which itself is without name and form. However, since it now has a name and form, it must be put to use. A body in one's true nature and religion is to abide in the truth shown by the Guru. Be firm in the understanding that what you are before any sound is heard is your true nature. When one realizes that this so-called birth is a myth, one attains enlightenment and becomes a siddha, a liberated one, and reaches the ultimate goal. When one is established in such an understanding of his true nature, past karmas and their effects dwindle. Nothing remains to be done or accomplished for such a person. Seeing others is a sign of duality. The liberated one does not see any others, nor are there others who see him, since there is nothing else other than him. The one who cognizes the self within is a swami, or an enlightened one. It is merely an imagination that one is popular amongst friends and relatives. We go astray in life by listening to numerous differing suggestions and trying to follow multiple instructions. Your true nature will always be the same as it was before the arrival of your sense of being. It is the same right now, and will continue to remain the same after you depart. Just like the nature of an unborn child. Can we compare the bliss of an unborn child with that of the one who is born and raised? Do what you must, but follow the advice of the Guru, and you will know true happiness. Knowingness is born, but not its knower. Every living being becomes relentlessly embroiled in the rigmarole of relationships. This malady of attachments causes a sense of being incomplete and can be cured by the grace of a Sadguru. Where can we find such a grace? The reflection of the Sadguru's grace can be experienced immediately by closing one's eyes. It is a reflection of contentment and peace. This is the advantage of Guru's benevolent grace. It is known as Sahaja Avastha, the natural state of being. Never forget to see this reflection of Guru's grace. When you recognize its importance, the whole universe becomes your family. Even if you cognize it just once, you become part of the universal family. What you now consider to be the enjoyment of happiness is only a misconception. The bliss of abiding in one's true nature is the only happiness that is real. This happiness is not dependent on anything that is external. When active consciousness forgets itself, there is true rest. Pay attention to consciousness by considering it to be Ishvara. Just as a single seed of corn planted in proper soil can give the crop that proliferates into multitude of corns, so too this knowingness, the sense of one's being if given attention to, can produce mighty results of knowing the Lord Himself. Consciousness is aware of all that is in its field. But how can consciousness, intellect, and mind know that which witnesses the absence of knowingness? Consciousness happens, but its knower exists eternally. When consciousness appears in a baby, it is initially not conscious of itself. When knowingness is born, it initially knows nothing, not even the consciousness of its existence. It takes 9 months to become conscious. After 9 months of the embryonic state, it is delivered into the world as a form having a state of knowingness. In this form, suffering is unavoidable. As this state is a product of 5 elements, even the so-called contentment has pain, which no one can control, as the controller himself is only a product of the 5 elements. Hence there is nothing to be done. Just see it and recognize it as it is, as jnana or consciousness of the universe. A jnani or an enlightened one knows consciousness. The knower of consciousness has no rituals, religious observances, or restrictions to be followed. When jnana is cognized, tranquility happens, and there is no further discussion or reasoning involved on this subject. That what is seen by the jnani is the light of the knower of consciousness. He doesn't do anything, but all things happen through him. Whatever he is aware of, his presence is always in the background. For him, there is no concept of death, as such a concept is born out of loose talk. It's just a hearsay, and completely untrue. To realize our true nature, we must become smaller than an atom, so as to lose our name and form. All matter is a part of the universe. The true form of your body is also this universe, and it certainly cannot be who you are. The body is merely food consumed by us and is just a product of the 5 elements. Within those gross elements, where is the place for us? If you consider yourself to be the gross body, you might equally see yourself as the universe, as both are just products of the 5 elements. Your conditioning brings about a strong sense of belief in being a gross body. The final knowledge of one's true nature is Paramartha Jnana, the path of self-knowledge. The one who did not know about his existence suddenly became aware of the entire universe. When birth happened, it was like waking up from a deep slumber or forgetfulness. The dormant knowingness was suddenly activated. In this beingness or waking state, sleep happens as forgetfulness. Waking and deep sleep along with knowingness create a sense of continuous being. This state is of little use, as it is a passing phase and has just appeared, so it must also go away someday. This state of expressing and manifesting as an entity is due to self-love. Although this ajnana or ignorance is present in the initial stages of life, it matures with time and eventually shines forth as jnana later during life. The real knower of this jnana is not aware of himself, but is nevertheless the illuminator of that jnana. A jnani is a knower of consciousness, without trying to know it. An enlightened one is a friend of Nirguna, or the one without attributes. The body has consciousness which is sustained by food. The formless knowingness is only a manifestation, but the form happens due to the consumption of food, which creates a person, since the food nourishes prana. One must grasp the true nature of oneself by meditation. Meditation is beneficial, but instead of practicing it, we spend time worrying, which leads to further obstructions on this spiritual path. Once the mind is addicted to the path of indulgence, there is no escape from it. It controls your life. The body is not your true nature. It is just an offering to the self. You are not this offering, but you are the witness of the waking and sleeping state. Without the sense of being, there would be no brahman and no illusion. Along with the 5 elements, there is a universal knowledge which is the knowledge of Brahman and the knowledge of being due to consciousness. Consciousness arose from the food that was consumed by the person, and not from spiritual rituals like fasting. This body arose from nothingness. What is born is not a person. just a collection of pleasures and pains. The unborn is said to be born, and thus life continues to happen. For all practical purposes, Lord Rama is very much present. In reality, however, all that exists is eternal, unmanifest peace or Paramatman, which is worshipped even by Lord Shankara. Brahmacharya means living as Brahman. The process of waking up each morning opens the door to the world outside and to the knowledge that we exist. This is self-love. Vairagya, or detachment, is to understand that this self-love is false. The concept of a living being is also fundamentally false, and this fact must be recognized. To accomplish that, stop worrying about your baseless anxieties and only think about the constant contemplation of reality. Would we be able to distinguish a few drops of water sprinkled on the surface of a vast ocean? Likewise, the knowingness of an individual does not have any independent existence. We incorrectly take it to be independent. This knowingness is all-pervading and is not confined to any single person. A person is merely an assumption. Where there are thoughts, there is a desire. Isn't this a sad commentary about life? Knowingness gives rise to this phenomenon. While the concept of the body and its experiences last, you must be devoted to the knowledge of being. So long as you have an experience of a body, you will be conscious of its form. But the fact is that it is not our form. You must understand that it is transitory experience and not your true nature. Remember that one day this feeling of being a separate and independent existence will go away. What is destined to happen? Let it happen. Try to find the end of your conviction about the self. This is all a game of prana and consciousness and not yours or mine. That which did not manifest is our true nature, and whatever is tangible, perceptible, and something we can be conscious about is just our expression. The devotee and devotion are God itself. Consciousness resides in a state of nivritti, or total renunciation, which is its final destination. The attribute of sattva runs the other qualities of life, which are rajas and tamas. That is why it is said that jnana is of the quality of sattva. The universe runs on its own, powered by 5 elements and the 3 qualities. There is no relation between them and you. Prakriti and Purusha, manifestation and divinity, are not individuals but a mirage of Chaitanya. We believe in what we think we are. That is ignorance. Things transpire without you doing anything, and it is a function of your consciousness. I have no use for manifestation, nor for the vast expression of my being, which is omnipresent. Para-Brahman is that into which everything finally merges and vanishes. What is functioning and active right now is only love. This is what we know as birth. The one who becomes one with Brahman is without awareness of being. When you merge in the infinite Brahman and lose your identity, who would there be to have a memory of your individuality? It is a state of unimaginable purity and immutability. The sense of being is mainly an entertainment. Recognize your immaculate nature, which is beyond imagination, and do not rely on the concept of your beingness. If you understand this wisdom, That is jnana. You realize that you are not the one who was born, nor the one destined to die one day. Try to know your birth, which has filled every place with names and forms. A newborn child is named based upon its gender. The witness of this name has no gender. The events in life that are attached to this name apparently happen, but they are unreal. Life continues to happen for that person based upon the strength and popularity of that name. So long as the knowingness experiences living, one must suffer it. The result of this so-called birth is completely worthless. Brahmacharya is conducting life with the understanding, I am Brahman. Finally, it also realized that the concept of Brahman is nothing but an illusion. Knowingness, or the sense of being, is a concept that depends on prana. Consciousness is just an impression of this concept. All is that alone. Who witnessed pralaya, or the great deluge? Where did it happen? And who reported it? That one resides in the place where time stands still. It was an interesting episode in the religious epic, but I, the one who is facing you in this form, was untouched even by the great deluge, and I remain unaffected. All beings perceive pleasures and pains in some way or another. I alone am without any color or shape, and so I am imperceptible in my true nature. Para-Brahman is called the Vastu, that which exists. I carry the torch of jnana, but I am neither the torch nor the light that shines from it. I am only the knower of that light. The qualities inherited from the 5 elements run the life on this earth. Vegetation and the food juices grow on earth, giving rise to countless life forms. The essence of the earth runs all life. The weather systems on earth cause monsoons which produce crops. This sustains life on earth, which in turn brings about consciousness in life forms. As a consequence, consciousness is bound by the norms of this world. These rules are called prarabdha, or fate. Sattva, or the quintessence of food produced on the earth, contains both a sense of being and prana. As sattva invigorates life, it is of prime importance to life on earth. The most important quality of sattva is consciousness, which sustains life in all living beings. At first there is an appearance of prana, which is followed by consciousness. Consciousness realizes its own existence. A being is named as per its form. The manifest consciousness is vast, but the unmanifest is without any awareness. The unmanifest Brahman is without any attributes or adjuncts. As an individual, the most prominent quality of sattva is rajas. In reality, all 3 qualities, namely sattva, rajas, and tamas, are one. The differences in color and shape are visible in beings due to the light of sattva. Prana exists while food is available, and due to prana, there is consciousness. Life happens on earth wherein the seeds are potentially dormant. Paramatman has no I amness. All this is Para-Brahman alone and nothing else. That which is neither perceived by the senses nor is felt as existing is ever present. That is what we are. Be in self-awareness. You worship God and Guru with utmost devotion, but you do not know the true meaning of devotion. You are aware that what you see and feel is illusion, but the attachment to possessions and relationships does not drop. This is because you take your name and form to be your true nature. Bhagavan says if you contemplate his presence and splendor within you, the apparent reality of this body drops, and you realize that this body is not you. Bhagavan says that all humans are his own eminent expressions. Hence, many persons are named after gods. Consciousness is Bhagavan and is powered by Goddess Bhagavati. The proof of God's presence in us is our knowledge that we are, which is our own consciousness. It is not the body. Bhagavan says, "Pay attention to my true greatness and know what it is." You must divert your attention to your inner consciousness and investigate its nature. The concept of merits and sins is to blow our body identity. But the sins or merits do not touch a jnani whose awareness of the body has vanished. That jnana enables one to see everything and experience life, but jnana itself is invisible to the senses. It is non-dual and exists all by itself. If it had even the slightest touch of duality, it would reveal itself. It is all-pervading Chaitanya, or the omnipresent cosmic consciousness. Chaitanya has no limits and is all-pervading. This knowingness that happened without any permission is my main identity. Jnana is sattva, and what we experience intuitively is I amness. Our knowledge that we exist is called consciousness, and it is the true essence of the great reality. It is the beginning of all beginnings. It is that which makes the Mahatmas holy. The direct evidence of God's existence is the knowledge of your own beingness. If you know that you exist, only then does God know that he exists. When I am is present, this alchemy is possible. This unrestrained, chaotic, and disturbed world started at the beginning of the Mula Maya, the primordial illusion. Is there a place on earth where we can say there is no disorder or chaos, even for a moment? Strife and disorder are the very family of Mula Maya. Unless one forgets oneself or one's sense of being, consciousness would not be tolerable. Hence, do not try to accomplish anything and just be in self-awareness. Anything that is done to avoid strife only throws you miles away from the self and peace. To dispel the body identity, the Guru initiates you as the self. When the universality of jnana is imbibed as one's own experience, one knows the witnessing aspect of jnana. It is then that one is united with Para-Brahman. This is a state of vijnana. The universal consciousness takes hold of such a person. Take shelter at the Guru's feet and cognize the great reality about that which took a human form during the 9 months of pregnancy. Consciousness is most important. That which is visible without actually existing will disappear as well. The origin of all that is visible and invisible is our sense of being, which is of the utmost importance. This knowledge is most significant because from the light of this knowingness, the world that we see is born, In deep sleep, this knowingness or the feeling that I exist is absent. It means that the sense of existence becomes dormant during deep sleep. You must merely understand what lies behind that which illumines this knowingness. Turn your attention completely to that, and you will realize that you were not conscious of your being. In that state, all objects are dormant and haven't perished. This knowingness is the seed of the manifested universe that we experience. A seed is small, but the tree that sprouts from it is colossal. Focus on the awareness of being which is veiled in deep sleep. Avashta is a word for the states of life which do not last, such as waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. It means that the state known as birth is only temporary. Since we are conscious of our existence, all animate and inanimate objects are cognized. Consciousness itself is the brahmanyana, or the knowledge of Brahman. The one who recognizes the child consciousness does not experience any death. Childhood is Balakrishna, or the time when our sense of being first happened and had to take care of infant Krishna, which is our own self. Balakrishna is the essence of sattva. One becomes conscious of oneself, and many new names are created in order to communicate. Due to consciousness, all life activities begin and eventually become unstoppable. That what is noticed becomes our subject matter, the original subject being Narayan due to Prakriti and Purusha. Narayan is the beginning of life, or the main cause of man and woman. Your consciousness is not an individual attribute, but is the life of the world. It is Mula Maya, or a speck of that great reality. It is due to the sattva of the food that is consumed that all activities happen. This speck is an atom, due to which there is knowingness. The body of any living being is its food. The quality of this speck is the memory that we exist. Its activity indicates Mula Maya. It is because of our faith and consciousness that we take care of it. But our desires begin with the arrival of consciousness, the primary one being the desire to be alive. We must know the origin of consciousness, which is sattva. These demands arise due to the arrival of our sense of being. The knower of consciousness needs nothing. He is untouched by the five elements. All activities happen around him. They are not his activities, but belong to the five elements, three qualities, and to Prakriti and Purusha. These are his 10 limbs. Liberation means nothing remains. Here is information about consciousness that has attained the final emancipation. Nirvana is losing the last trace of ignorance. When ignorance is gone, jnana attains nirvana. The state of nirvana has no description. It is unalloyed and unadulterated bliss, the non-dual happiness. There is no other experience except being non-dual experience. This is a description of what really happens. A body is useful only for talking. The knower of the state of nirvana has no use for the five elements that make up this universe. Vijnana, the ultimate knowledge, is untouched by the three attributes that constitute the world. Since he is the knower of the three attributes, the sattva, rajas, and tamas, in that there is no experience even of sattva guna. When do we know the knowingness is not jnana? That happens when we ally with self-knowledge. The one who knows prakriti, or the cosmic substance, knows that he is separate from her. In the realm of Atma, there are many things that can be described, but in Paramatman there is not even a sense of being. Liberation means to leave nothing behind. For Paramatman, liberation and heaven are the same. There is no distinction such as me and others in that. This is the benefit of being a jnani. A jnani knows that consciousness, which is quality of sattva, is universal, just as an ornament made of gold is nothing but gold. A nugget made of gold is completely pervaded by gold. There is just manifestation and no individuality. As consciousness, or the quality of sattva, contains the whole world, that is its inherent quality. The one who totally adopts the Guru's words becomes one with the universe. Some claim to be Ashtanga yogis. They claim to have mastered the yoga of 8 limbs. Others call themselves Jnana Chaitanya, or the knower of Brahman. But neither of them can be accepted as true jnanis. Without self-knowledge, there is no moksha. Ignorance that has made you what you are and must be separated from you in order to set you free. An impostor has taken the form of personal consciousness and functions in the form of ego. No one knows how this thief comes into being. As Parabrahman is unaware even of his own existence, there was no chance of it knowing the arrival of this thief. Even the light of 1,000,000 suns are dim in the field of Paramatman. A small taste of the state of Paramatman is in deep sleep, where you are not even aware of your own existence. Where then is there any possibility of an experience? Pleasures and pains do not trouble you, as in Paramatman there is no experience of being either physical or mental. Waking and sleeping are the experiences in the field of consciousness and of the 3 gunas, but they are not the attributes of a jnani. The 5 elements, 3 qualities, prakriti and purusha, all the 10 limbs, are also without a physical form, and the elements such as fire, air, and space have no physical shape or form. Due to our physical form, we assume ourselves to be our body. Thus begins our never-ending problem of unhappiness. Adhere to the teachings of the Guru, and the knowledge of what is real will dawn.